And now's a great time to be learning it because, as you said, something's coming down the pipeline. We don't
It
know
is.
exactly when, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but something's
Right.
coming down the pipeline. And so if you can learn some of these creative strategies, you're going to be able to take advantage more than
Yeah.
anybody else. Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, excited to have Bill Ham. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing excellent, man. Thanks for joining me. Bill is the Chief Operating Officer, the COO of Broadwell Property Group, formerly a private jet pilot for a surgeon, a world-renowned surgeon. Ham, Bill left the corporate aviation life, began his investing career with a single duplex over more than 15 years. He's grown that company to include more than 1,500 units spread over the state of Georgia, along with the thriving property management company. And of course, now again, he's the COO of Broadwell. So with that said, Bill, welcome to the show and give our listeners a bit more about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you having me. Like you said, I've been in business almost 16 years now, a little 15. You got to update that bio there. But started off as a corporate pilot, came out of school, started flying airplanes. It was in 05, 04, 05, around that range. And I was watching friends of mine flip houses and thought, wait a minute. We were all at the bar last night. You guys are friends of mine and y'all are a bunch of idiots. And I went to work this morning and you went and flipped some houses and, one or two flips, you're making what I'm making all year long. I went, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this equation. And so I spent about a year or so kind of researching and studying real estate. I read all the books I could read, just normal stuff. And my very first deal was a duplex. And the duplex is cash flowing $300. I had saved up $10,000 total life savings. And I said, I'm a genius. I'm out of here. And I turned in my notice.
You actually quit after one duplex.
Yes. The duplex. Well, the duplex is nothing broke was cash flowing $300 and I had 10 grand. Yeah. Found out real quick I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. But, but hey, figured it out. Just after flipping houses and kind of crawling up the food chain, if you will. It started very humble beginnings, very tough neighborhood, Macon, Georgia. Middle Georgia, which is not the most affluent area of the world, I'll say that. And started in some pretty tough neighborhoods, flipped and then slowly got into multifamily, just kind of started getting bigger and bigger. Very small multifamily. So like 9 units was the first one and then 20 units, so forth and so on until I got up into larger assets. My first 402 units, I was actually able to get in place and build that portfolio with only creative financing. So not what I mean by creative financing is not going into a bank, sitting down, putting down 20%, getting a loan and buying the property. I did ultimately do that, but that was well into my career. So yeah, the first 402 units was either seller financing, lease options, credit cards, partners, you name it. I had come up with some way to get the deals done. And so fast forward, I've been in the business this whole time. Things you mentioned, management company. I've managed everything that I've owned. And now I've actually written a book and we're launching a book actually this week. So February 9th, my book, Creative Cash, will be out. So that's cool. What I've been, that's the background.
So are you still doing creative financing deals at all?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Whenever possible, yes. One thing people have to understand about creative financing is it's sort of cyclical. Markets cycle, the economy cycles, and creative financing is a technique used to solve seller problems. And that's where a lot of people, kind of make a mistake when trying to use some of these techniques is they think it's all about getting a deal for themselves, what's good for themselves, and that's the wrong way of looking at creative financing. It's about finding a seller with some kind of problem, making an offer, that solves their problem, in exchange gives you access to the real estate. So that's sort of the matrix of creative financing. All right, has creative financing been around heavily over the last 5-6 years? No. Market's been super hot. I mean, if the seller had a problem, distressed asset, whatever the case, they probably could just stick it on the market, list it, get asking price or even more for it. You know what I mean? So it's not really, there was a whole lot of problem. That's about to change. We're going into a recession cycle. The economy is about to turn. Real estate will face some headwinds. One of the largest ones that we're going to be up against is retreating debt. This is always a marker of an economic downturn cycle. The lenders start to pull back. We've already started to see it happen right now. Lenders looking for larger, less loan to value, larger escrows for repairs. Fannie and Freddie, if you're trying to do commercial loans right now, they want you to put up a year's worth of principal, interest, tax, and insurance. So the lenders are starting to really tighten up on their criteria, and this always is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like the lenders say, "Hey, I think we're going into a recession," so they tighten up criteria, which puts us into a recession. So it's a way of kind of predicting the market cycle by watching what debt's doing. Well, point being is if debt starts to pull back, the first thing they stop doing is lending on distressed assets. Things that aren't the highest here. Maybe the numbers aren't great. Maybe there's some repairs need to be done. They just really tighten up on those types of properties. Well, that's where creative financing comes in. It's when a seller, can't just park that deal on the open market and get asking price plus $1. All of a sudden they can't really sell the property at all. Why? Because you can't get a decent mortgage to buy the property.
Yeah.
That's when creative financing kicks in. And so this is gonna be a really important subject over the next, between sort of today and I'm predicting over the next 4 years of this market cycle, this is gonna be a very prevalent information.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I really like how you position that seller financing is really about serving the seller, not the buyer, right? And so you've got to figure out a way to make it attractive to the seller. The every time I've done seller financing of any kind, it's showing them the profit they're going to be able to make with seller financing versus if they sell it traditionally and like you said, look, this is kind of impossible to finance. Your property isn't going to be possible to finance. Here's what you're going to get if you sell it to me through this method.
Yeah.
And you're providing them an opportunity. So now is a great time to. So is your book about then creative financing?
It is. It's called Creative Cash.
Creative Cash. So I figured
right there in the title. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is strictly on creative financing for real estate.
Yeah.
It leans towards multifamily in the conversation. That's just because I do multifamily.
That's what you've done.
But listeners need to understand that, hey, look, creative financing has absolutely nothing to do with multifamily at all. You can use it on any type of real estate. I mean, any asset category, any type. It's about sellers, not real estate. And that's, I always tell everybody, look, 90% of a good deal is seller, 10% is the real estate. The real estate can be dealt with. You can have the best asset in the world, and if the seller is not really willing to work with you or negotiate, doesn't matter what the real estate is, does it? So it's, again, the same thought process in this problem-solving point of view about addressing issues and really deal analysis is what I'm saying. It's a problem-solving approach to deal analysis, and so the analysis starts with the seller, not the asset, not the numbers, not the property. That's what everybody kind of teaches. Get a T12, figure out the NOI. Yeah, certainly, we do all that. But let's go talk to that seller and see what motivates them, and then solve it from that angle. Yeah, that's where I see most students, most people that I work with go wrong in creative financing. It's me, and then second thought is, oh yeah, there's a seller involved. You got to reverse that.
Yeah, no, great points. And like you said, it's not always the same reasoning either, that they they might not care about the cash up front. They might want the cash flow. And there's so many different scenarios.
Burned out landlord. My favorite.
Burned out. Right.
Real estate's not a problem at all. The asset's in great shape. This landlord is just tired of trash and toilets and tenants and whatever. And they want to go. That's a perfect scenario for a master lease option.
Yeah.
Excellent scenario for that. Yep. Love that. Yeah, you're right. I've never done two deals that were the same. Never two sellers had the same problem, the same needs, the same wants. Every single deal is completely different.
Probably one of the, so do you go through different scenarios and different ways you've set up the seller financing in the book?
I do. Yeah. It's a step-by-step process through the entire system. Starting off with deal analysis, how to look at deals, how to analyze deals from a creative perspective. So I take you all through the math. I take you through a lot of formulas. It's all pretty simple stuff, and I've written it for anywhere from beginning to intermediate level. So If you're new to business, this is a great subject for you to start learning. It's how I got into business without a lot of cash, without a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And it's a way to build experience. But yeah, I walk everybody through step by step and teach you how to go through the whole process of deal analysis and looking at it. So a total step by step process in there. So definitely.
And now's a great time to be learning it because, as you said, something's coming down the pipeline. We don't know exactly when, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but something's coming down the pipeline. And so if you can learn some of these creative strategies, you're going to be able to take advantage more than anybody else. And,
agreed. And it's what I always tell everybody, the creative financing is not the way. It's not, it's not the only way. Right. I don't want anybody to go out there and say, hey, I'm only going to do seller financing deals or I'm only doing lease. No, stop. Seller creative financing just are tools that increase probability. That's it. If your only tool is to go to the bank and put down 20%, 30%, whatever, interest rate, loan to value, all this garbage, you're going to find that in the future, very few deals actually fit that model, And so this creative financing is just a way to say, hey, when you analyze the deal and you say that deal does not work, here are several other techniques that can increase the probability that maybe it will work. And if you go through all those and it still doesn't work, then put it back in the trash and move on, So creative financing is not the only way. It's just a way to increase probability. So don't go around asking for seller financing deals and lease option deals, especially not to realtors. You'll look like you can't close, like you don't have any money. So just, analyze the deal like you always do. If it doesn't work, educate the seller as to why it doesn't work, then create an offer. And that's how you want to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. You don't want to, if you're running around asking realtors, hey, will they accept seller financing? And then you just, like you said, you look like you don't qualify. That's what they think of. And,
exactly.
They don't want to be a part of that either, right?
Correct. A realtor and seller, they're worried about closing. They're worried about getting paid at closing, right? Yeah. So that's your biggest obstacle right there, is that they're going to go, wait a minute, I'm not getting all my money right now, Yep. So that's why you don't really, and the worst thing I think you can do is to reach out to realtors specifically and say, hey, do you have any deals that have, that qualify for seller financing? Got any lease option deals? That don't do that. They're going to write you off instantly.
Yeah.
So just look at deals the way you always do. If it doesn't work, then figure out it. Then use some of these creative financing techniques. Because if it does work and you can go to the bank and get a loan, do it. You should.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Good advice. I mean, if you get the regular loan, if the property works like that, you probably should. Yeah. Probably.
And if you can't qualify for the loan, then that's a different conversation altogether.
Yeah.
If you don't have the ability to financially qualify for that type of debt, well, now you're talking about syndication. Now you're talking about going out and finding partners and, bringing balance sheet people. And I do that as well. That's just not quite the point of this, So I say if the property qualifies for debt, go buy it with debt. Why not? It's the safest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. What somebody who, somebody's like, hey, this is speaking to me, right? I really like this idea of seller financing. Obviously reading your book is probably step one. Like, what else do they really need to know that maybe we haven't hit on? Anything that we haven't hit on that they should really understand?
Well, then I'll give the selfless plug. I also have a masterclass that you can go in and download. That's at creativeapartmentdeals.com. So you can go download that. But really what I would suggest, besides, telling you to come get my information, what I would recommend is that you really take your real estate business, real estate education into the negotiation arena. That's an area, Todd, that I see is like woefully misunderstood and studied amongst real estate investors. Go pick up some books on negotiation. It's a really, really good course of study. That's what I recommend, because I'm going to teach you in my book, certainly how to negotiate creative financing, but I can't teach you all of the things about negotiation. So I really would suggest your listeners go out and start making a formal study of negotiation. A lot of great works out there, a lot of great authors, but that's what I'd recommend.
Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite?
I do at the moment. I like Chris Voss. He's pretty popular.
He's pretty
He's good. He's the one. Everybody's like, Chris Voss. That's a good one. And then I like some of the older guys. There's a Herb Cohen. negotiate this. And of course, there's always the classic getting yes, Robert Urey, William Fisher. Those are the classics. But yeah, you just go out and find a couple of good books on that. You'd be surprised what you can learn. A lot of skills that extend well outside of business and real estate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Good stuff. Hey, real quick, I just want to let you know about the multifamily challenge that we got going on. It's a 5-day multifamily challenge on how to get an offer in quickly, right? So we're going to teach you in 5 days, 5 1-hour sessions. We're going to go through the steps and the process to get there. So go to mfichallenge.com, mfichallenge.com. You can sign up. It's free if you want the VIP. There's a bunch of things that we'll give away too. You do have to pay for that, but hey, it's going to be well worth it. Again, you can get in for free. We're going to teach you how to get that offer across the table, get the LOI in, all the steps. So Ellis Hammond and Ellis was episode 316. Check out his episode. And we're going to be doing this next week. So sign up now at mfichallenge.com, mfichallenge.com, and get in there. We're doing it next week, and it's going to be awesome. So hope to see you there. So right now, what's your main focus on? What are you trying to do right now in today's market?
Yeah, I'm looking weekly at multifamily assets, and that's pretty much all we do at Broadwell. We do that in some lending, but as far as the multifamily is concerned right now, the prices are pretty high.
Yeah.
I think some of the metrics have really kind of departed the market. I don't agree with a lot of the valuation and a lot of the underwriting that I see in the market right now. So am I on the sidelines? No, but I'm also not making stupid purchases, therefore functionally somewhat on the sideline. I understand market cycles, and I know what's coming, and I know when to hold them, when to fold them. And so I'm going to sit tight for a minute. Flight to quality. I'm only interested in newer buildings because at the moment, I believe we're all going to have to overpay for real estate a little bit. Well, if I'm going to overpay, I want to overpay for quality. I want to overpay for a nicer building. One of the big issues and one of the big things that I talk about a lot in my lectures and in my world is what I call the Capex Tsunami. And what I'm afraid of at the moment, and one thing that I think is not really being discussed in America enough, aging assets. Not only aging infrastructure like plumbing and roads and belts. I mean, there's that, but 60s and 70s built apartment complexes, which is the real bulk of our affordable housing in America. The assets are aging out. Man, those things are getting old. That plumbing's getting old. Those roofs and the electrical are outdated. And the cap rates spread between the C's and the A's are absurdly low, absurdly narrow. So you're paying almost an A cap rate for a C asset that I believe is being misunderstood, because really, if you're buying that thing at a 4 or 5 cap rate, and then all of a sudden in year 2 or 3, you're doing all this plumbing work and the repairs and the upgrades, the electrical, blah, blah, blah. Operationally, that's a 1 or a 2 cap. That's not a good idea, And so that's where I'm kind of looking at the C space going, yeah, that's going to be some trouble. That really exaggerates the problem if we overpay for the building. 1, because our cost basis is now too high. And 2, you got to hold the asset much, much longer to get the same cash flow and returns. And so that's kind of what I'm predicting is, like, if everybody's going to pay low cap rates in today's market, we're probably going to hold on to these assets for a good 7 years to get the same returns that we were able to get in 2 years over the last 2 years or last 5 years. And so that's why I'm kind of, there's going to be a flattening of the market. Well, that's not a real big problem as long as the building that you just bought has the physical legs under it to not collapse in the next 7 years and take your cap rate into an extremely low number, no cash flow, no profit. So that's kind of one of my predictions. And that's where we at Broadwell and what I am suggesting to all your listeners, be careful about what you buy right now. Sit tight on those C's. Let's let that part cool off. Hey, let's wait till there's some sellers with some distress and then come in with some creative financing. That's when you want to get back into that C space. Right now, I would move flight to quality is what I call it. Is what we're doing. Newer assets, nicer neighborhoods.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. People forget, or maybe not even forget, they just don't know. A lot of people are buying these buildings. They don't really understand the construction of these buildings. Understand that exactly as you said. Like, look, galvanized piping and cast iron piping, it doesn't last forever. And guess what? we're actually beyond its life expectancy.
Correct.
And so if you're buying, so I was just sent a 60s asset portfolio, and I'm like, look, guys, we want to put in CapEx about $500,000 to replace all this plumbing, because we cannot expect this plumbing to withstand any longer. Like it's just going to, and guess what? Even if it does, it's going to cost us so much in operational expenses, because we're going to have that little hole here. And it's that all of a sudden we got to replace this section, and we got to replace this section, and we got to rot it out, waste pipe, and we got to replace that. Plus we got some flooding that happened, crap came in somebody's unit because of the rust. And it's like, man, guys, you have to be aware. I'm in the business. I get it.
You sound like you're in the business, because that's exactly what I'm talking about there.
It's going to happen exactly as you said. There's going to be this Capex tsunami. And what's happened is these buildings have been putting lipstick on.
Right.
Since the 90s, when the galvanized was still okay. Right. And then well, let's upgrade it. And then 5 to 10 years later, let's upgrade it. And then 5 to 10 years later, let's upgrade it. We keep on doing that, but we're not actually upgrading the real issues that are potentially like these skeletons behind the closet, right?
Exactly. That's what I call whiny plumbing. It doesn't completely explode. It's just kind of whiny all over the place. Little drips here and there. You're right. And you literally watch your cash flow go down the drain. Literally,
which creates negative NOI and creates ultimately poor values of your property.
And that's exactly. And that's why I'm kind of predicting a decline in the C space. The supply and demand is solid. So it's not that. But the problem is what I'm seeing is NIMBYism, not in my backyard, in BY NIMBY. And as your buildings start to age, it's the more affluent areas around your property that says, hey, that's the bad neighborhood. See, that's the slumlord. And they start complaining to code enforcement. And all of a sudden, code enforcement's over there knocking on your door going, hey, you're abusive to your tenants.
A good point.
Honestly, you probably are. You need to provide good, clean, affordable housing. It can't leak. It can't be junk. It can't be full of bugs. It can't be rotten. Yes, but hold on. You're going to be the one to write that check.
Yeah, but you buy for too much.
Right. And so I don't want to be negative on affordable housing. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm actually down on older buildings or C space. I'm not. I love that product at the right price. And see, that's the gift that just keeps on giving. When you overpay for that building, you get stuck on that like Capex treadmill. It's like a bad credit card. You just can't get off. You're just stuck on those payments. Yeah. That's where I think we're headed in the C space. And so again, it's not a problem as long as you have the money to write the check. Yeah. And when you all of a sudden blow the value up of the asset cost basis, what you bought it for, and now what you got to put in it exceeds the value of the asset. That's no bueno. And that's what I'm kind of saying, hey, watch out. I'm afraid we're going to see an inversion of pricing in the C space here for too much longer, because people like you and I, Todd, are figuring out, hey, that plumbing is gonzo, and you sit down and pencil out what it takes to just strip it all out and replace it. You're in foreclosure the day you buy the thing with a 4 cap rate or a 5 cap rate or something like that, Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of saying right now, probably safer until things settle down. Flight to quality. Be very careful about aged assets. Be very careful about turning a blind eye to underwriting and the underwriting of the capital expense needs for that property. It's what I call pencil whipping. I'm from Georgia, so we rednecks, that's what we call it. Don't pencil whip your deal, just making it all work on paper, basically what I'm saying. So that's kind of, I think, where we're at. And that's one of my predictions for the market. Not a giant crash necessarily, a correction.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, I probably for the most part agree with your analysis there. And it's hard to say, right? We don't have a crystal ball, but something's got to give eventually, especially as you said on the C class. It just makes sense. So
I always make a joke. How do you know when we've hit the market peak, or how do you know when the market's peaked? You look backwards and go, oh, there it goes.
Yep.
It's always hindsight.
Always.
You can't tell. You always look back and go, oh, that was it. There it goes.
It's fun. It's funny when you say that. I wasn't investing in real estate in 2004 and 5, although still remember telling one of my friends in 2005, I said something about real estate's going to crash. It's just going to crash. I see it coming. And he's like, whatever, they're not making any more land. It's not going to happen. Well, they aren't making more land, but they were making a lot more houses. It crashed, of course, but in 20, whatever it was, when the bottom was starting to, you could tell we're probably starting to go up soon. I just remember everybody telling me they're waiting until the bottom. They're waiting until the bottom. They're waiting until, and I'm sitting here buying, and I'm buying like everything I possibly can. And by the time the bottom hit, it was already like, way up here. And people were like, oh, wow, the bottom was, 8-10 months ago. They didn't see it until it was way beyond, and they're already buying, not at the top, but at the rise
on the other side. Yeah.
Like, guys, you just missed out on, 12 to 18 months worth of inventory that you could have been buying. But luckily for me, I was buying it. So
yeah, I think you got to pick the metrics, pick the math, pick the business model, and stick to it. And that means you're going to not maximize the very top of the market. You're probably not going to maximize the very, very bottom either. You're going to get it right most of the time, right through the middle. Just pick the math that works for you. Stick to it. Don't go chasing deals. Don't chase your friends and get their itis and follow the Joneses. And, you're going to see people closing deals, and you're going to go, how in the world did they close that deal? That's crazy. Hey, I do it every week. I'm looking at a deal going, that's crazy. How did this person close that deal? Yeah. There's always a small part of my mind that gets jealous. Going, well, what do they know that I don't know? No, let's reverse that. What do I know that they don't know? And so I can, and that's why I have to turn that kind of part of your mind off and go, no, I got my metrics. I know my business. I'm sticking to it. And that's that. And you're going to miss some deals, but good for you.
That's a really important mindset. Hard to get your mind around that mindset, right?
Takes practice. It takes practice.
Because especially today, like the social media, right? It's everywhere around us. You see these people, oh, I just closed on this 250 unit deal. And you're like, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I close on a 250 unit deal?
What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me?
What am I doing wrong?
Stupid. I must be, no, not true. The market is crazier than a box of frogs right now. You need to just sit tight and stick to your math.
Coming out on you again.
There you go. That's it. You know what I mean? And know your metrics and don't chase everybody else. Don't worry about it. Don't let all that news and stuff get in your head. And maybe they got lucky. Who knows? Maybe that's the greatest deal in the world, and maybe you're about to get lucky.
Yeah.
But hope is not a business model.
I like that. So you're not aggressively pursuing multifamily. Are you aggressively trying to grow any aspect of your business right now?
I am, and we are aggressively pursuing multifamily. I'm just not aggressively getting my aggressive offers accepted.
You're not aggressively. You're not changing your underwriting. You're not doing things to create deals.
Correct. We're not chasing deals. We're aggressively analyzing deals. But again, the numbers and the statistics are not in our favor at the moment, just because. But more of the education side of the business. I am absolutely passionately growing that side of the business right now. So I brought out the book. I coach and I teach for Wheelbarrow Profits, Jake and Gino. So I'm very active and passionate about teaching. I would sit here and do this for free all day long. Don't tell them because they pay me, but I love talking real estate. My wife's sick of hearing it, so this is always a good vent for me to get here. Have a good real estate conversation. So I love teaching. I love speaking, getting out doing a lot of that. I've written this book, Creative Catch, which comes out February 9th on Amazon. And I am actually about 60% through a second book that I'm working on. So that's really? To be determined. That's coming out later on. But so I'm working on a second book, but we've got this one right now coming out right now. Amazon, Audible, and Kindle, as a matter of fact.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So what are, you've been in business for a while. What'd you say? 16 years, right?
Almost 16. Yeah.
Coming up on 16 years. And obviously you've seen a lot. What's a mistake that you've made along the way, and how'd you learn from it?
Ooh, hold on. We count here. Long list. One of the, I guess probably a real estate answer would be, one of the mistakes that I made is early on was not really placing the deal into the context of the market, just misanalyzing deals by only looking at things like cash flow and not really looking at the area in the market around the property, not giving the neighborhood, the city, the area as much value as I should. I was analyzing deals sort of, with tunnel vision. If it hit certain cash flow numbers, that was great. That was good.
I could speak to that, man.
Man, you got to back your vision way up beyond that. And I made a lot of mistakes earlier on in my business, buying assets with the prediction of the neighborhood really doing what it was never going to do, just having very rosy colored glasses on about the asset. And that kind of goes back to that Capex, those old junk real estate, I'll call it. It just doesn't appreciate much. It's an education. That's about it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Good
I can speak to that, man.
There you go.
Like you look at this deal and you're like, oh, this thing works. And you're not paying attention. I mean, maybe a little bit to the neighborhood, but you're not paying attention to really what's going on there. And
that's everything. It's the age old adage, location, right? Yeah. No one ever says cash flow. Yeah. Why? Because location has everything to do with appreciation. Yeah. And appreciation is actually what real estate is about. Yeah, everybody thinks it's cash flow, and that's great, but look, it's appreciation. If your building does not go up in value, your exit strategy is likely to be very constrained. And again, exit strategy, that's a huge subject. You got to know, you got to be able to get out of these things. I hate the comment, you make money when you buy. I think that's probably some of the worst real estate advice in all of history, because it mitigates the value of an exit strategy. That comment basically says, oh, hey, you can go buy anything and you'll make money as long as you buy it. That's nonsense. Ask anybody that went into foreclosure if they made money when they buy. That's an absurd comment. You might create value when you buy. You make money when you get out of the deal and the check clears the banking account. That's when you make money, when you exit profitably, not when you buy something. So anyway, I get off on a tangent there, but yeah.
That's a perfect tangent.
I watched that one. That's another mistake I made early on was being way too confident in the purchase and not putting enough value on the exit strategy. Exit strategy is everything in this business.
I invested in a poor market that I likely shouldn't have invested in, or at least the part of the neighborhood in that market.
Right.
And it was because I was looking at the cash flow only, looking at what was going on with the cash flow. I was going to make great cash flow. And that was in turn going to make the deal great. Well, in hindsight, like you said, you've got the location is so valuable. Yeah. Is cash flow important? Yeah. We got to be able to pay the bills. Like
sure,
no doubt you can't buy a property and not pay the bills, at least in my opinion. Now, some people do, but I think that's crazy. But you've got to focus on that appreciation, and you got to focus on your exit strategy. You got to focus on how you can create the value.
Yeah.
If you can't, what's the point of the deal? And all these people that want to chase these markets, chase dying markets, it's got population decline. I'm gonna invest in, I don't know, name a market with population decline, Cleveland. I'm gonna invest there because it's got great cash flow. And by the way, I don't know anything about Cleveland, so maybe it's great. But all of a sudden the market's tanking, and your property that you bought for $1 million is now worth $600,000. What was the point of all that beautiful cash flow?
Yeah, exactly. And especially if you go into foreclosure with it. So, it's not about making money. As I said, it's about keeping it, right? So, that's the whole point of an exit strategy is being able to get out of that thing profitably. And that's tremendously important. Well, since you mentioned the aviation thing, I'll tell you a story. I remember my very first solo flight. The flight instructor, we landed the airplane, and I had just been flying airplanes for a few weeks, brand new. I think I was a teenager at the time, actually. And flight instructor, we land the airplane, and he all of a sudden we're on the runway, and he says, stop. And he hops out the airplane, closes the door, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, where are you going? And I remember he said, okay, you're going to go on your first solo flight. And he leaned back in the door, and I'll never forget. He said, hey, listen, remember, takeoff's optional, landing's mandatory. And he closed the door and walked off, okay, whatever. I'm about to go fly an airplane. I didn't think of it. Well, it's one of those things I thought about later on. And the guy's absolutely right. You have a choice as to whether to take the airplane off or not. But if you do, you have no choice but to put that thing back on the ground, wheels up, wings up. Somehow that airplane is going back on the ground. Well, if you close a deal, you will exit. You will exit profitably, intact financially, in foreclosure. So don't, it's not all about buying real estate. Everybody thinks it's
Yeah.
about closing deals and getting into the deal. And that's just horrible point of view. It's both. It's closing and exit. And I see a lot of teachers out there that say things like, "Oh, I invest only for cash flow. If I get appreciation, that's that's a nice to have. That's just lucky." No, it's not. You got to have both. You must have both. And if you don't have cash flow is great. You're not gonna pay the bills, as you said, but if you don't have appreciation, you may not have a profitable exit strategy. Try and refinance a property that's declined in value. I've tried that. It didn't work very well. Try and sell one, when you're upside down on the debt. Done that too. Doesn't work very well. So again, it's very important that we pay attention to all sides and don't listen to people that tell you appreciation is just for fun. That's terrible advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. What are what are some success habits that you've been able to put in place that you really think other people can learn from?
Yeah, two success habits. One easy one. I read and study a lot. I think you need to be a student of all things at all times. Personally, it's 2 cups of coffee in the Wall Street Journal every morning. That's personal routine. So I recommend just constantly studying. Study things academically, like obviously negotiation, real estate, my book, things of that nature, but also study the news.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it, but you need to know what's going on. And I'm not a very political person, so I don't really care politics wise, but I can tell you just about anything that's going on around the planet because I read the Wall Street Journal all the time. It gives you great conversation besides the weather. If you've been reading and studying the news, and you know what's going on in the world, and you meet a stranger or you're networking or you're out trying to meet people, you can always talk about something besides the blasted weather. What a stupid conversation to have with somebody, have something more intelligent to say. And so by reading and studying a lot, you always have conversation. And that's actually been one of the best networking techniques that I've come across, is being able to carry on a conversation with somebody other than just what you're after, other than just trying to raise money or your deal or real estate, be an interesting person. And so reading and studying and being global certainly help you do that. I would say the second thing that I would say was a success is learning how to tolerate failure. That's a biggie. People are too sensitive to failure, I think. And you really got to learn how to be, you got to practice failure. You got to get good at failure. It's one of those mindsets that just takes practice. Hey, if you go crazy, nobody's coming to save you. You're the tip of the spear. It's your business.
Yep.
Everybody's looking to you to make it happen. You cannot go crazy. And trust me, I have. So I've been through 08. I went through the crash, so yeah. But that's it. I think largely just being willing to fail the first time. I would go as far as say a failure isn't a mistake is not a failure until you repeat it. And put it that way. You know what I mean? A mistake the first time around is an education.
Yeah.
Okay, the second time around it's a failure. But people kind of look at mistakes as failures the first time they make them, and I think that's a terrible point of view. So those are probably my 2 success tips that I've put in place.
Cool. Yeah, good stuff, man. What's a favorite book? Obviously, other than your own.
Yeah, other than mine, right? Let's see. No, I got lots of favorite books. I like classics. I would say probably favorite book is The Prince by Machiavelli. Absolute favorite book. And I think, and I've said this before, I think Machiavelli is one of the most misunderstood authors in history. Everybody always thinks he's some kind of evil, overlord, Machiavelli, better to be feared and loved, all this kind of nonsense. It's a woeful misunderstanding of Machiavelli and his work. The Prince is an excellent novel. And if you kind of take that and reread it, and apply it in the concept of like a business instead of a prince or a kingdom, something like that. And you just mentally swap those words out with CEO and company. It's an amazing management and business novel, actually. You just have to learn how to read it.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right. So I got one last question before we wrap up. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
3 pillars of wealth creation. One, well, if we're talking real estate would be one of them. Get in and learn.
You can.
We know that.
Yeah, you talk however you want. I don't.
Yeah, I would say one would be learn an asset class. It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate. That's just what I do. But I would certainly focus. Would be the first one. Focus on whatever asset or business type you're after. Don't get caught up in shiny object syndrome. Be willing to really put the time and the energy into one thing until you really master it. So spend some time figuring out what's right for you, and then really dive in and put all your eggs in one basket and stare at that basket. That's I don't like hedging. I don't like watering things down. I'm a very focused person. So that would be my first pillar, would be focus on whatever it is you're doing. Second, we kind of talked about, would probably be learn the art of failure. Learn. All right, I guess my second pillar, let me put it this way: redefine your definition of insanity. That would be my second pillar, right? So when I always ask this question, I say, what's the common definition of insanity? And of course, everybody always says the same thing. Oh, it's the doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. First of all, no, it's not. Look it up. That's made up. That's a meme. That's not true. Okay, and then I ask you, if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, what's your definition of practice? It's the same thing. So are you telling me that practice is insane? Practice is doing the same thing over and over, not expecting a different result, staying there until you get one. And so that's why I say the second pillar would have to be pulling down the concept of what we consider insanity, which is just a way of me moving into practice. Practice is the second pillar. You really have to be willing to practice. And under the guise of practice falls failure, because obviously to be good at practice, you have to be good at failure. Yep. So, you can't just get out there and be good first time around. So those would be two. I don't know. I think about a third one. What would a third one be? Be a student. Always be a student. Always be studying. Always be a student. You're never done. You're never done learning. Always be studying something. Bettering yourself in whatever way you can. So that would be the third one. Just strive for excellence, especially in education.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Bill, I really appreciate the time you're able to spend with us, man. It's been good. You bring energy. You've brought a ton of great value. So I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
How can our listeners get in touch with you, learn more about what's going on?
Definitely. Yeah. Hey, if anybody wants to email me directly, it's bill@gobroadwell.com. That's my email. So please reach out to me if you got any questions or I can help you with anything, let me know. If you would like to invest with my company and my partners, that is broadwellpropertygroup.com. So you can just go there. We have a section for investors. You can fill out the information. We'll be in touch with you. And then as far as the book and education is concerned, that's the book is Get Creative Cash, excuse me. And you can get Creative Cash at Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and also at creativeapartmentdeals.com. That's where we have our masterclass as well. So those are all the ways people can get in touch with me, and look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, you have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you. I appreciate you. You too. Take care.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.